I spent all day reading this damn book and then taking notes. And now I got to talk to you for like 2 hours. I mean, it's a minor hell, Jill.
It's difficult. It's so difficult.
Life is hard, for people in the first world, particularly me,
Yes.
I want you to have some sympathy.
I have none.
I
have none. Zero.
Yeah, I know. That's probably why we get along all right. All right, Jill, why are we here? Tell me why we're here.
Here to discuss Sabriel, a book. And we are in the last part, last section.
Not even 100 pages, right?
No, it was short. Yeah.
It was relatively short.
Opened it up. I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be a fast little read here.
Well, that's good because we got to kind of do an overarching summary for the end, so that's good.
Yeah. It's chapters 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and an epilogue.
Why even call it an epilogue?
Yeah, we'll get to that, the quote-unquote epilogue.
Yes, we will. Before that, though, I would like to welcome everybody to Science Fiction and Fantasy Read Along. This is our podcast and book club dedicated to kind of a deeper reading of books, mostly in genre, I would say. Probably all in genre. I mean, I don't really plan on leaving the sci-fi fantasy realm.
Well, we'd have to change the title.
We would.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing. All right. So, welcome to the show, everybody. If you are new to the podcast or if you have not consumed the previous episodes, whatever, we recommend that you start at the beginning. All episodes are available on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. Let's see. What happened in what was the last section about? What did we do for that?
The getting to I can't remember the old
Belisare.
I couldn't remember the name.
The old capital city. Yeah,
getting to the Great Charterstones, trying to find a portion, finds a portion.
Runs like hell.
Yeah, they're dead. They realize they need to destroy Kerrigor's body, which is on the other side of the wall in Ancelstiere.
Right.
Came from.
Which is funny, because if you think about it, she didn't have to go all the way to Belisare. All she had to do was go ask the Claire. Right?
Yeah, but she didn't even know who the Claire were.
That might be true.
No, it is true. She had no clue who they were. She knew nothing, thanks to her dad, who
raised her across the wall.
Ridiculous. Didn't even tell her things she needed to know.
Well, he made her read that gross green leather book that bleeds.
Yeah, that's about it, though.
That's true. All right, well,
History is important, people. History is important.
You say that, but I don't know anything about history, and I'm getting along just fine.
Yeah, well, fine, but you're not a necromancer.
Oh, right, we didn't do the who are we? I'm Lewel Stamp. You are.
I am Jill.
Jill.
Just Jill.
Just Jill B. Pill.
Jill B. Pill.
So this particular section of the book, which is the end. Well, let's just go. Yeah.
Yeah. Chapter 25.
Okay, so let's get
chapter 20. 25.
25. Chapter 25 is my chapter. We distribute these between us. Chapter 25 begins with Colonel Horry's trying to shave. He keeps getting interrupted because there's a plane or an aircraft of some kind flying in. They've seen it from the perimeter wall. And so he goes out and he looks, and sure enough, he gets some binoculars out, and there's Sabriel. She's coming in. Maybe not Sabriel. They better check. So they get some guys together. They hand crank that siren or whatever, and they go out and look. Anyway, so Sabriel decided that she landed that paper wing that they borrowed from the Claire, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to give you choice. Here you go. We're going to send you away because I don't want you being taken apart and over to Ancelstiere and taken apart. So you have the choice."
When you say gives it choice, she imbues it with the charter magic for choice.
Correct.
And for flying and whatever. Yeah.
Automated flight. Here you go.
Go to my house.
She's like, you can go back to the Claire's Glacier, or you can go to my house. That's cool if you want, And it's like, does the paper wing know how she treated the other paper wing?
So brashly crashing it.
Oh, yeah. Crashing it, and then Mogget burned it. So
yes.
Anyway, So they cross the wall with Colonel,
You saying Captain?
and the paper wing goes off on its own business. And basically, it's just a delivery of some really bad news that the flutes, were they called flutes?
Wind chimes.
Wind chimes.
Yes.
They're going to fail because the full moon is this day, and the Abhorsen died yesterday. So the first full moon after the death of the Abhorsen, who enchanted them, they're going to fall apart. So the dead are going to rise in great numbers tonight. And for some reason, well, whatever. We'll get to that next chapter.
Sabriel asked him if the full moon had already happened.
Oh, yes.
Or if it was, so it's kind of hoping it had already happened, but time is different on either side of the wall. Time runs differently.
That detail where they had patrols go out and come back, a few days later, swearing that they'd been gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to just mention that.
That's funny in a way because his response was, "It's a headache for the paymaster." Yeah, and it's like, it's so true. That is exactly, that is what the military would be concerned with. They would be like, they're obviously they're lying, but these guys are like, we were out there for 2 weeks. We need to be paid for 2 weeks. It's not,
Yeah.
And they obviously know that time is weird.
Yeah.
On both sides of the wall. I mean, come on. There's a sheer line artificially where it's autumn on one side and deep winter on the other.
How do you visualize what the wall looks like? Is it tall to you or is it short?
It's squat in my imagination.
Me too.
It's very squat.
Like a brick wall dividing farmland or something.
Have you ever Have you ever played Dark Souls?
Yes.
So I kind of imagine it like Dark Souls, where you've got like this wooded area on one side, but it's not like a normal wall. It's not a defense, right? They're not on the wall. They're not using the wall as a defense. They literally have a perimeter south of the wall that watches the wall. So
yeah, to see when things break through or if they break through. So
they can obviously cross through.
What you're saying is it's a magical barrier.
Well, that also, yeah, it's definitely, it's magical in function, but you can pass through it. There's gates and stuff like that, and for whatever reason, they don't man the wall. They man the perimeter south of the wall. The wall, to me, it just seems like a better option for defense. But what do I know?
Once we got to this part, I got really strong Game of Thrones vibes.
Well, I mean, part of that
magic walls.
Part of that is definitely not his fault. I mean, these books are contemporary.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're both from the same year, in fact.
Oh, interesting.
Hold on. This one might be 2 years earlier. When was it? This is 95. So this was 1 year prior to the Game of Thrones.
Interesting.
Nevertheless, let's talk about that at the end because I think it's interesting what the wall is and stuff, but let's not get into it right now because it's not the place. But that literally is, it's just a little bit of an information dump. Sabriel and Touchstone show up. They deliver some information and some very bad news to the colonel at the wall. They're like, we need your help. We've got a job to do. And as we discussed in the last episode, that job is to go and destroy the body of Kerrigor, which is on this side of the wall, south side of the wall, in Ancelstier, and then hopefully drive him into death. And that is this chapter.
Yes, and she wants all the mages and Captain Horace to come.
Yes. To
where the cairn is, the sarcophagus.
Please help me.
Yeah, they need all the magic they can muster.
And I think that's just good policy. Don't go and do these things by yourself.
Well, she knows already that she's not strong enough. Like the two of them, her and Touchstone, aren't strong. Even their magic together isn't strong enough or going to be strong enough to destroy Kerrigor.
Well, how do they know that exactly?
Just based off of fighting him already, I think.
They haven't really fought him, though. They've only run away from him.
It's a reading in between the lines thing. It's an assumption on my part, I guess.
Well, if her father was not powerful enough to rid the world of him, what hope does she have?
Sure.
By herself, at least.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was chapter 25. Why don't we move on to chapter 26, Jill?
So chapter 26, we have all the soldiers getting ready in a flurry around Touchstone and Sabriel, who are eating and talking to each other and feeling outside of the commotion and the hubbub and not part of the planning process, which is understandable. She put the grand plan into motion, and now the army's doing its thing. They're getting all their crap together.
Which did you find it surprising how easy it was for her to convince the army to like? The army
does what it's told. She really just had to convince Horace, who kind of was already on her side and already knows what's up. And he does mention that whoever is actually in charge is somewhere down south, and he has this vague explanation of why they're there, and he's de facto in charge.
Right.
So she really just had to convince him, and it was pretty easy to convince him because he knows what a porcine is. He trusts her. He's got a daughter. It was easy.
So he just mobilizes the military and is like, let's go, boys. We're going to go kill some stuff. Dead things.
Gets it together. He trusts that what she's saying is 100% true and that they're all going to die. And she does tell him that, too. That
if they stay to defend the wall, they're all going to die.
Yeah, she wants him to order them to just let Kerrigor through, because if not, they're just going to die anyway. And I'm not sure he was fully convinced of that or not. It's not explained if that's what he orders, but he does say, like, I can't guarantee they're not going to fight because that's what we're trained to do.
Well, it's later in this chapter when he starts making phone calls back. Do you remember?
Yeah.
He makes a phone call back to the perimeter. And he's talking to the guy that first spotted the plane, the paper wing, and the line gets cut at that point. So they definitely still had people on the wall or at the perimeter.
Oh, yeah. No, they were definitely, it's not that they took people away from the perimeter. It's what he wanted him to order them to do, which was stand down, basically.
Don't fight.
Don't fight, not be there, but
lock the door and hide.
Yeah, barricade themselves in. And he's like, I don't think they're going to be doing that. As they're talking about all of this stuff and getting ready, Sabriel knows that Colonel Horace has the sight and asks him what he sees. And he says he sees the quote unquote usual thing. And Sabriel's confused by what that means, but he says it in a very melancholy way. And she keeps trying to ask him, but he's busy doing other things. And she finally asks Touchstone, what did he mean by that? And he draws a line on her hand, I guess. Palmistry, it's like the death line or the lifeline. And then like he ends it. And she's like, oh, okay. Like he's going to die. Like everyone else is going to die.
Well, that whole thing spawned, didn't it? Because she asked him if he was coming with. She had requested his presence with them because he's also a powerful charter mage, and he said he would think about it. And then she asked him again in the car, and he was like, "Yes, I am going," almost as though what he saw when he, because he has the sight, what he saw indicated that he had voice almost.
He saw himself in a place that he knew, he's going with her.
Yeah, obviously. It answered the question for her. I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. From a story perspective, not as much, but anything that suggests that the world is preordained, and I don't like it. Like, I find it to be very uncomfortable. Like, there's no free will. The guy had no choice whatsoever. He's going to this place, wherever it was that he saw, and he's going to die.
And it's also interesting because in the previous chapter, she had imbued the paper wing with a magical spell giving it choice.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
And the Claire obviously already know which way it's going to choose, which again tells me that it doesn't really have a choice. Like, it's preordained. Right. This world is preordained. You might as well just go along for the ride because you can't affect anything.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what it means.
I can't disagree.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm sorry to derail you there.
Not a problem. So they leave. They leave the wall. They're on their way to Docky Point, which is where the cairn is, which is where the sarcophagus is, which is where they need to get to open that thing up
before nightfall.
Yes, before nightfall. Which I'm trying. It's like 30 or 40 miles away.
And they can travel 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, so they don't think they're going to get there before dark.
No, they do. They do. But it's like...
But just before.
Pretty much.
They're not going to have much time.
No.
So on their way, Horace says that he needs to warn the constabulary. They need to go to the police station, warn the local coppers what's going on, so they can protect the villagers all around. They get there. Captain Horace talks to the dude. Superintendent Dingley. Hilarious.
When you say it like that.
Pulled me. That's how I read it. It pulled me out. Superintendent Dingley. As they're talking, Touchstone and Sabriel hear warning bells. And funny enough, that reminds Touchstone of his world in the past. Like, warning bells were a thing in his world. So it actually makes him feel at home. I don't know. He mentioned
strange detail.
It's a weird thing. It's like, okay.
I think they use bells everywhere, so.
Yeah. Sabriel explains that they're taught when you hear the bells, there's a whole slew of things. Anti-dead tips. Go inside. Yeah. If you're outside, go by running water. There's several others that we've seen in the book already.
Right.
And anybody who doesn't know will tell everybody else.
No, they will be told. They'll be told by the people who do know.
Isn't that what I said?
A little backwards, but that's all right.
Okay. So the warning bells are going. They're talking. Touchstone is reminiscing about his old life in the old kingdom and the slow pace of it, and how back then he wished for more excitement, but now he wishes that they could hang out in that time. Probably walk along the riverbanks holding hands and whatever his romantic view of this life is going to be.
Well, I'd be a little bit sympathetic. I mean, he's like in his very early 20s. You too were a ding-dong in your early 20s.
I don't think I was that romantic.
Jill, I knew you then.
I was not that romantic.
No, you were a ding-dong, no?
I guess. I'm still a ding-dong.
Aren't we all?
Yes, we are.
So
Touchstone's getting very romantic and reminiscent, and he says to Sabriel, if you don't mind, I love you. And she thinks about it for a little while, and she goes, I don't mind. And I might love you too.
Oh, when you put it that way, I really don't like it. In my memory, it's much more pure, and now you're sullying it by talking about it.
I'm so sorry, but that is how I read it.
No, I get it.
I've said to you before, and I'll say it now again, I'm not into their romance.
Right.
I'm not feeling it. I don't like it. And maybe that's why I'm reading it that way. But I don't feel it. I don't think it's been
earned.
Fleshed out enough. Yeah, it hasn't been earned at all. Especially because it kind of started right when they met each other. Like, before he was even unfrozen, she's already kind of having a romantic view of this figure. A little bit.
Wow. So, I didn't read it that way. But that's...
Then it kind of transfers to him being the more romantic one. Like, I would say she's less romantic than him, but the whole thing is, I don't need it and I don't want it.
Her dad died yesterday.
That too.
Yesterday.
Yeah, I know how that feels, and I wouldn't want to be dealing with anything that Touchstone has to say here.
I really think maybe I love you. You know, ironically, actually, from his perspective of time, we now know that his mother died mere, 2-3 weeks ago, tops.
That's true. So
her dad died, 1-2 days ago, tops.
He's had a lot going on if you think about it. And
they both have, really. Yeah. I mean, she's been on the since her father sent the dead thing in the first chapter at Wyverly Call, before she even graduates. But she never does, obviously. But anyway, from that moment on, she has been on the move, constantly harried, followed, pursued. Not a pleasant experience.
No.
Falling through the air, crashing, gore crows, Mogget attacks her, like all these things. The skin of her teeth is how she's getting by.
Yeah.
And then there's this guy who's like, I might be in love with you. She's like, You're right. You're right. You're right.
Yes.
It was, from maybe not the best timing,
It
But then
doesn't-
again, they're these two young people. They're what each other have. That's it, right?
I
They're
get
alone in
that,
the world.
but I feel like that perspective was forced on us, not based off of her character or because we don't really know him at all. Maybe it's based on his character, but based off of who I think she is, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It just doesn't make sense, and I don't think she has time for it.
Definitely doesn't.
The only times when they could have formed any sort of even a friendship, I'm just going to go with friendship, would be like the moments in the boat, perhaps, or what, like any of the travel things.
Yeah.
But we don't get any of that, so I'm not feeling that. I can fill in those blanks, but I don't want to.
Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Like, I'd rather it just not be a romance thing, or it needs to be something that's earned and fleshed out, like I said before.
I agree.
And I'll move on.
You know where this would have been appropriate is in the epilogue. It would have been appropriate there because all the stress is gone. It's the end of the book. There's no stress.
Oh, you mean talking about the relationship?
Yeah, I mean,
I thought you meant me talking about it.
No. I mean, begin the development of their personal relationship.
Yes.
In the epilogue, when everything's fine. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do know what you're talking about.
It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to talk about it right now.
And we can talk about it more in the epilogue.
Let's do that.
I will move on. I guess they've said I love you to each other. It's pretty awkward. We can both agree on that.
Yeah.
They're interrupted. Horace is on the phone with the wall. Is that what's happening?
I don't think they get on the phone until they get to the cairn.
Okay, so they leave the police station. I'm just gonna call it police station. Yeah. They leave the police station. They're heading to DocuPoint. They arrive at DocuPoint. They arrive at the cairn. They set up the phones and everything.
Yeah.
He calls and the phones go out.
Yeah, he called the perimeter wall.
And the phones go out, which is pretty much a signal to them that Kerrigor has arrived, or at least the dead have arrived.
He's crossed the wall at least.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of a mental math when I was doing my second reading, and that's about 4:45 in the afternoon when that happens.
Okay.
So he's crossing the wall because they said sundown was at a particular time, and he crosses before the sun goes down. But like the fog is preceding him. He's using the fog so that his minions can come with him.
Yeah, it's not nighttime yet.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly.
What you're saying. Yeah. So they start moving those stones, and as they move the stones, that sickness feeling is there, and mages start dropping like flies a little bit. Some can withstand it better.
Falling down. They described that one guy, the dapper fellow with the blonde mustache who fell down the hill vomiting. What?
I think there's a lot of that going on. And they finally free the stones so that they could walk down to the sarcophaguses to do a spell to open the sarcophagus. And Sabriel has them all line up in a line, holding hands, forming a human chain.
Very manly.
Walking down so that all the magic is flowing. Like, she can feel all of their magic, and it makes her stronger, and it makes her magic stronger. And she gets down there, does the spell, but it like blasts them back. It pushes them back. Yep. A whole bunch of people get sick, and it does not open.
No. It also blistered her hand. I thought that was pretty cool. It's so well defended that when she touched it to deliver the spell, which, again, I come from a D&D background, so when it's a touch attack, she goes and touches the sarcophagus to deliver the spell that's been building up through this chain of spell.
Yeah, you're right. It's a touch magic attack.
Yep.
Completely.
And first of all, it blows them all backwards, but it blisters her hand.
Her saving throw, she didn't quite make her saving throw, but luckily she's a strong enough mage that she has a natural protection against half of that damage.
Maybe she has spell resistance.
Yeah, she's got something going on.
She does. But yeah, she failed her fortitude save.
Yes.
For sure.
Definitely.
But apparently it doesn't matter because she uses her hand as though it has no blisters.
Right. What happens next? The fog is rolling in fast from the north. Horace asks Sabriel if Kerrigor might know what they're up to, and she says, "Oh, most definitely."
Yeah, they've been on the phone. She's like, Kerrigor, I'm gonna go and destroy your body if you don't mind. And he's like, yeah, I do actually mind. I'll be there shortly. Don't go anywhere.
That's exactly what happened.
She's like, I won't go anywhere. We'll wait right here.
I'm reading in between the lines.
Yeah, I know.
That's exactly what happened. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Hold on.
That's how that chapter ends. Did I miss anything important?
I don't think you missed anything important, but this chapter of all of the chapters is the most of a countdown that we get. It's like the fog is rolling in, and we're getting kind of like this cadence of danger approaching. It's like slowly building up. They go off to do their thing, and it's important, and then the bells start to ring, and like there are all these little details that are building up to the culmination.
Kerrigor's coming.
Yep. Yeah. It's. Do you find it's coincidental, completely coincidental, the way that we divided this book into sections?
It is. It just happened. Yeah.
But it worked so well. It worked so well. Anyway, so I'm just going to cut that out because it's not pertinent at all. But we're going to move on to chapter 27. Would you not agree?
Yeah, that's fine. Sometimes people like impertinent things, non-pertinent things.
You're impertinent.
You're impertinent.
I know, right? You hear my Texas come out? Don't talk about it, Jill.
I like your Texas.
Don't talk about my Texas, Jill.
I'm not. It gives you flavor.
Oops.
It gives you personality that you don't otherwise have.
You're right. You're right. That was
just a boring dig. Californian.
That was a huge dig. Jill just attacked me. You can't get away with that. You're in California. I'm in New Mexico. I can get away with stuff like that because there are no police out here.
You're New Mexican.
All right. Chapter 27 begins, and they're still up at the cairn. And Touchstone suggests that if these mages that they have with them were not powerful enough, simply by sheer lack of numbers, then maybe they could find some other mages in the nearby area. Maybe, I don't know, the school where Sabriel, didn't graduate. It's only a mile away, apparently.
Yeah, Touchstone comes up with that fabulous idea.
Well, I think he suggests they find more mages, and then she's like, oh, well, speaking of mages, I happen to know where there's like 30.
Yeah, she does. So the little bells go off in her head like, oh, yeah.
Right. So fortunately, they're very, very close. But they know that they're never going to have enough time. It's way too late. The sun's definitely on its way down. They don't have enough time to go to the school with a messenger to bring them there. So they're like, let's get the sarcophagus on a truck and let's go there with it. That'll save some time. So they do that.
I'm not even sure I'm sure they know better than I do because I'm not there. But to take wagons down, have a messenger run, tell them what's up, gather the girls, get them on the thing and bring them back. I'm just wondering how long it took for them to get that sarcophagus onto the wagon.
While I know what you're saying is correct, I think that Colonel Horries also made the decision that the school would be a better place to defend than the top of this mountain. And like the very fastest thing for them to do would be to send a messenger and drag the sarcophagus at the same time and meet in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Like 2/3 of the way to the school, whatever. That would be the fastest thing that they could do.
Yeah, and I forgot, Sabriel does say, like, it's basically a castle without a moat.
Right.
Like running water, she's like, no.
That is too bad. That is just too bad. Do you know what I mean? It's like, they should have dragged the thing to the river and then just, whatever. What are you going to do, Kerrigor? We're out in the middle of the river. Ha ha.
Just did the rock and said, come at me.
Come at me, bro. Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, they decide to put this thing up on a wagon, horse-drawn carriage, because its proximity to the engines means that the engines won't run, the guns won't work, none of that stuff, apparently.
It's still making everybody sick.
And it is making everybody sick. And that's the free magic, making everybody sick. So this big bronze thing gets put onto a horse-drawn wagon and gets trundled off the mile away or whatnot to the school. There's some details I don't really care about. For example, the conversation with the woman running the school, Mrs. Umbraid, and like how
Yeah,
this it's unimportant.
She
But
basically
nevertheless,
doesn't know what's going on, and they move past her, and Sabriel takes charge basically with Horace.
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about it now. But the point is, they couldn't open the thing. They moved it to the school. They've requested that the girls who are in the sixth form, the fifth form students,
The top two classes.
they are
Magic
requested
classes.
to come down, and they do. They know they're running out of time.
And Magistrix Greenwood.
Yes, the one who teaches them magic. Exactly. So I imagine it kind of like I already talked to you about this, but like I imagine it like Raiders of the Lost Ark, because they're at this castle and they're setting up lights because it's about to be dark and they're going to need to be able to see. They can't see in the dark, but they're going to want to be able to shoot the undead before they show up. So they're
I don't know. Did you say like they're all standing around she's telling everyone what's going on and the lights go out because the electricity has failed.
Yeah, that's when Kerrigor passes the substation.
Yes.
But they're still putting out like concertina wire, which is just like a spool of barbed wire. You kind of bang it on the ground and it pops open.
Yeah.
They're doing stuff like that to, setting up machine gun emplacements and sandbags, and they're on the second floor. They're getting the killing floor ready.
It's
while
funny
Sabriel's moving the sarcophagus. She's not, but they are moving the sarcophagus into this large room so they can get around it and they can perform the magic.
I had, especially when she's talking to the students and gathering everybody and saying she needs the, magistrix and all the students, that had a very, very much a Harry Potter final battle vibe to me.
Right.
For
Totally. However, 3 years before Harry Potter.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that was the vibe I got in that section. And
Right.
Pre-Harry Potter.
Yep. 3 years. And we're talking about the last book of Harry Potter too, aren't we?
Yes.
Which was many years after this book.
Oh yeah. Many.
Those are good books.
I enjoy them.
Come on. This is not a podcast about Harry Potter. However, those books were quite good.
Not a fan of the movies so much, but the books, yes.
Huh. Okay. I liked it all. I've even been to Harry Potter Land, whatever it's called.
Is it fun?
Universal Studios Harry Potter. Yeah, no, I had a good time.
Did you get a wand?
I did not buy a wand. I bought a scarf because I'll actually use the scarf. I won't actually use the wand. I wouldn't be caught dead in public with a wand if it wasn't Halloween.
Well, you would just display it in your house. You wouldn't carry it around.
Says Jill. If you're going to buy a wand, I'm going to... Whatever. No, I didn't buy a wand. There was like a line for doing that.
Because they have to choose you.
Well, it's got a chip in it, and it can be used to like open this door at Universal Studios and all sorts of stuff. And like, I just didn't. It was a long line. It was money, and it was not what. That's just not for me. That's for kids. I'm good with the scarf. What
scarf did you get?
Well, I'm Ravenclaw, of course.
Ugh.
What's this? Ugh.
I'm Slytherin.
So? We can't get along? We can't get along?
As I made comment in one of your guys' recent live casts, I think Ravenclaw and Slytherin are two sides of the same coin.
Really?
Yes. As far as they're like opposite ends.
Okay.
They're both really smart. It's just one skews more evil.
More evil.
And one skews
less
evil and more nerdy, I guess. I don't know.
I think the fact that Ravenclaw is at Hogwarts, and I'm sorry, the fact that Slytherin is at Hogwarts, I can't believe we're doing this. The fact that Slytherin is at Hogwarts at all means not evil.
It's true.
It is
I said skews evil.
It is just the most likely personality type that might turn evil is going to come out of Slytherin.
Mm-hmm.
But them being there at all suggests to me let's not talk about Snape. Snape, the head of that house. I can't believe we're doing this.
I know, I'm Slytherin. Slytherin's the best.
I love Snape. I love him. I wish
I do too.
He had not died, like the actor, obviously. He died the same year as David Bowie, and like that was the worst year for me caring about people who had passed that year. Just like David Bowie right at the beginning of the year, followed by Alan Rickman. I mean, just, oh, geez. Every year's a bad year, you know.
Yeah, people die every year.
That's true. That's true. Well, Jill, I think that's the end of chapter 27. Harry Potter showed
the
up.
End of chapter 27. What was it? No, aren't we still in the middle of this chapter?
No. I don't think so. I don't. Oh, well, okay. So
what happened? What just happened?
Only other details. Like they showed up at we've already talked about that. They showed up at the school. They kind of barged in. They kind of take over. They kind of set up the sarcophagus where they want it. They tell the people who they want to show up.
You're right. They're just preparing.
It's not a big deal chapter. The only thing of any importance is that the power does go out, and there's there's some gunshots. There's a picket of men who Sabriel feels die. There's some gunshots, and then a flare goes up, a magnesium flare, and it's a little ways away yet. It's outside the property.
Yeah.
But that's how the chapter ends.
They are a-coming.
Chapter 28.
Chapter 28. The fog is almost at the gates, rolling in. Sabriel is standing at the doorstep, looking out. She can feel the dead coming.
Oh, yeah, hordes of them.
Hundreds of hands coming, and they soon arrive right after she has that feeling and just barrel through the gates, knocking them down. They only stop when their bodies are completely destroyed. So they're ripped apart by bullets or the barbed wire or the explosions. Like, they still keep coming, like all the way to the steps. Once that happens, like the horde keeps coming, and Horrors tells Sabriel, or orders her, get inside now. And she goes inside and she walks past this group of helmed soldiers who have swords and shields and old-timey weapons, because they are the force that are gonna fight once the guns fail, and if the dead make it past, which they probably will. They're acting very casual, like, oh, we might not have to fight at all. And they're drinking tea and being all relaxed. But Sabriel feels the fakeness in their tones. Yeah. They're definitely not very casual
I'm surprised
at all.
They weren't smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were, actually. And they're drinking tea on the school's second best china. I thought that was pretty good.
Then we move on to the Great Hall, where we have the scouts on one end of the room, the students, the female magic students on the other side of the room, with Touchstone and Magistrix Greenwood in the middle, described like a middle school dance. Everyone's just kind of separated on their sides, and Sabriel comes in, and she can hear, like, the guns. Is it the guns? The guns are still going, and then she can hear the guns go out.
Yeah.
And she knows that
they stopped because Kerrigor. They didn't stop because there's nothing left to shoot at.
Right. She knows that Kerrigor stopped the guns. Yeah. And she also feels many deaths. She's probably just been feeling them this whole time once this battle started.
Yeah.
And she quickly gets everyone together to form a circle, holding hands around the sarcophagus so that they can get this charter opening spell going, which they do. The sarcophagus starts spinning around. The lid flies off dangerously.
OSHA.
Doesn't hit anything, thank goodness.
Yeah, no kidding. That was almost certainly a death right there.
And the sarcophagus opens up. They look inside, and Magistrix Greenwood notes that, oh, it looks like you, Touchstone. It's kind of I think that's just to let us know what this body looks like, or that the body is still
young, fresh.
Yeah, young, fresh, human, not degraded by all this Kerrigor nonsense. As they're looking at this, the soldiers rush inside the Great Hall. And the last group of them rush in and they barricade the door. Kerrigor's coming. He's inside. As soon as that happens, rewind. Sabriel gets into gear, says, we need to do the last rites. We need to perform the last rites. And everyone gathers around her, and she needs everyone's help to deliver these last rites. And as she's doing it, she's interrupted by the wall crashing down.
Oh yeah, it just explodes.
Just the wall explodes, and she hears this voice that says, "Blood price must be paid."
Uh-oh.
And it's not Kerrigor's voice.
Oh, we've heard that before.
Yes, it is, in fact, the voice of Mogget in free magic form.
Right.
He is holding a sword and the bell Astriel. He says some other lines. What does he say?
Well, he like delivers them, and he's like the last. You know, he was obliged to deliver those two items. That's what he says essentially.
Yeah, he throws the sword down and places the bell down,
which is appropriate. He doesn't want to ring that one.
And after that happens, Kerrigor steps in. They're talking. Sabriel, are they talking, or is
no?
Mogget
She scampers to the other side of the sarcophagus, trying to hide from Mogget. It's dark. Remember, right. The power's gone out. The explosion.
They have magic light going on too. They did magic spells for light. Her and the Magistrix earlier.
Yeah.
Getting
no,
ready.
I remember.
And they have like a glance of the eyes, like, "Hey, we're both magic users. We're awesome."
Well, they are.
But as she's being cautious with Mogget. She has the ring, like she's holding the ring, I believe, at this point too. Like I believe the ring is mentioned at this point.
I don't remember that. I don't know. I don't know.
But she's being cautious, and as he's kind of coming towards her.
Well, Jill, before we go to this like section that you're moving on to, you asked a question earlier.
Yeah.
That I think you should go ahead and ask for the show.
What was the question I asked?
Well, the question that you asked earlier was, does she have the ring on? What happened? How did Mogget get free?
The question I wonder is, what happened to Mogget
because the last thing we saw was
what did we see?
Abhorsen and Mogget were together in the reservoir.
And Mogget was a cat?
I don't you know what? Let's look that up real quick because that's easy.
I don't remember.
Jorbert. That guy's name that I like to make fun of is Jorbert. Come on now. That is a...
Dingley is far worse.
Jorbert. Yeah. What if his name is Jorbert Dingley?
Jorbert sounds like a snooty name.
Aha. He saw Sabriel's father, the Abhorsen, for the first time devoid of frost. He looked hard, determined. It's on 386 middle. Mogget was on his shoulder too, and that was unlike Mogget going into danger. There was something else particular about Mogget also. Yes, his collar was gone.
Okay,
Maybe he should turn to go back, but Mogget's collar back on, try and fight Kerrigor.
So his collar was off.
Yeah, his collar was off.
So who took his collar off?
I don't know that the collar actually physically has to be taken off. Like, did she take it off in the paper wing early on?
Yes.
Took it off.
That's how it, yes. I mean, he can't just become free magic because that thing's binding him. It has to be removed.
So when she took his collar...
That is what the ring is.
Okay, that's fair. But when she took his collar off originally, it didn't do anything to the ring. The ring was just on her hand still. Right? And then she took the ring off and bound Mogget with the ring. And then Mogget vomited up a new ring, and she put that back on. So
yeah, that's kind of confusing, actually. Like, it doesn't really.
But it makes sense as far as it's consistent with what we've seen so far. Like, the fact that she still has the ring on her finger is not an inconsistency in the story.
No, that's not what I mean. Just the whole idea seems kind of weird to me. But yes, you are correct. Like, she still has, because she has to use the ring to bind him when he's not the cat.
So her father must have taken the collar off of Mogget.
But he was frozen in death.
Oh,
wait, but they came out of death, and he was going to fight for a little while. So, yeah, he must have taken it off right when he came out of death.
Right.
So that's what happened. So Mogget was freed.
Mm-hmm.
And Abhorsen...
And now we're
speculating. This is pure speculation.
Well, I mean, it's educated speculation.
I'm telling our listeners we're making educated guesses and reading in between the lines on this part because we just don't know. But
kind of have to.
It's kind of mentioned, but not really. You have to assume the Abhorsen has sent him to deliver back the bell and sword.
Oh, well, I mean, we can actually look that up too. I bring you Abhorsen's sword, the creature said, dropping a long, dimly seen object to one side, and the bell called Astriel. That it laid carefully down, the silver glinting momentarily before it was lowered into the sea of dust. Come forward, Abhorsen. It is long since time that we began. I must deliver my last burden, the creature said. Then the bargain is done, and I may turn to retribution. So he's compelled on some level. I'm assuming Abhorsen said, hey, take these to my daughter, and Mogget has no choice.
Right. But it also seems like they've struck some sort of a deal, or why is this the last thing that he has to do?
Well, obviously he has...
Wait. That's just a lie, because we know what happens after. Like, he's not free.
Mogget?
Yeah.
I mean, if he killed Sabriel, I imagine he would be free.
That's true, but I'm saying, why would that be the last thing and he doesn't have to be bound anymore? I don't understand.
I think it's because...
That all seems false.
Well, the way I interpret it is because the Abhorsen told him to go do this thing, he has no choice. Mogget has to deliver the sword and the bell. But once that's done, he's free. He doesn't have his collar on right now. So unless Sabriel can get that collar back on him, he doesn't do anything that she says.
Right.
But he does have to follow the rules laid down by the previous Abhorsen. So he has to deliver what he was commanded to deliver, and then he can kill her. That's how I read that.
Yeah. That's fine. That's all the explanation we get, so...
True.
That's fine.
Well, again, the reader's interpretation and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. So Mogget showed up.
Yeah, so Mogget shows up, the whole bell sword thing. He brings the sword, brings the bell. It's the last thing he has to do before. What were the words? Read the quote for me.
I closed the book.
Oh, dang it. It's his last deed before he can deliver his retribution.
Yes, exactly.
As this is happening, you hear the voice, stop. And it's Kerrigor, who says... She's mine. Back off. You are not going to destroy her. I will destroy her or do whatever I want with her. And they lunge towards each other and fight. And it's this dark thing and this light thing, and they're fighting. And Mogget gets consumed.
Yeah.
He loses.
He does. Garth Nix described it as like an octopus surrounding a turtle or something like that.
Yeah.
The brightness that is Mogget was...
Like it's tentacles and tendrils, the black tendrils just surrounding him. Mm-hmm. And things are falling, the beams are falling from the ceiling as the consummation is happening.
Consummation? I don't know if that's the right word.
Right. As Mogget is being consumed,
there we go.
Sabriel's looking around and she sees Magistrix Greenwood has been impaled.
Oh, she's
by
dead.
Some beam or something, and she's dead. And she does not feel that Touchstone is dead. And she looks around, she sees him. She can see that his leg's broken. It must be pretty bad if she can see that his leg is broken.
That's a good point.
She goes to get the bell Astrael, but it's covered in dust and it's filthy and it won't ring. And she knows that it's only going to ring after careful cleaning with magic and patience and time. And that's not happening now. So she decides to go for the sword. And
she put it back down on the ground.
I guess she just figured nobody needs these bells, so they won't take it, or...
I don't know. It just seemed odd that she didn't just put it away, but she put it back on the ground.
Odd, especially because it's not like it comes back into play or anything. Like, it didn't have to be out. It could have been put back in, for sure.
Right.
So she picks up the sword.
Important, yes. Good.
And picks up the most important sword and looks at the most important sword. And notices that the inscription on the sword has changed. It says, "The Clare saw me. The Wallmaker made me. The King quenched me. The Abhorsen wields me so that no dead shall walk in life, for this is not their path." And she whispered, "This is not their path," and took up the sword in guard position, waiting for Kerrigor to strike. And that's the end of the chapter.
All right, so that was chapter 28. Is that right?
That is correct.
Chapter 29. The final chapter of the book. Sabriel is in the guard position with her sword, a familiar sword, thankfully, back in her hand. And yeah, the sword says stuff on it. It's awesome. Real cool. Lore-based stuff, right? Interesting stuff.
Yes.
And then Kerrigor is like, he's done digesting Mogget. And so he starts to grow. He gets taller. Sabriel's like pulling out Bell. I think she decides she wants to pull out 2 bells at once and like ring them both. And
yes.
And somehow Kerrigor,
because she knows that 1 bell isn't going to be strong enough, but maybe 2 bells will be strong enough.
Right. She wants to bind him to her will, but she also wants to, I don't remember.
This one and the other one, whatever the Walker one is. But yeah, 2 bells in concert.
One was a binder. The other one was probably a compulsion of some kind, but it doesn't really matter.
The binder and the Walker is what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she goes and she tries to ring these bells, and Kerrigor is like, those are toys at this point. I'm far too powerful for that nonsense to work. And his words have kind of like a paralytic effect on her, and she's not really able to ring the bells. And as she's frozen there, this young girl, one of her classmates, who's dying on the ground with her last effort, touches Sabriel on the ankle. And that is enough. That delivery of that touch was enough charter magic to free her from the spell that was binding her. So she rings the bells, kind of in haste, and it's not really the effect that she wanted, but it's enough to diminish Kerrigor and push him back a little ways.
Yeah.
Then she gets to really ring the bells, both of them. Ding, ding.
And really feels it. She feels the magic of the bells.
Yeah, but she got it right, importantly. It wasn't a casual thing. She got it exactly right. And
that's what I mean. She put her whole self into it on that one.
Yeah. The effect is that Kerrigor, the monster, is forced bodily back into his human form, which is awesome. That's part of the job that they wanted to do, was get him back in, kill his body and then destroy him. But now he's back
walks him into Rogier's old body.
Right. And as soon as he's back in the body, Sabriel's like, I'm going to take advantage of this nonsense. And she sticks that sword of hers straight through him. She just runs him through. Bam. And he just kind of chuckles at her. It's like, no sword is going to hurt me, especially now, because I've just subsumed the last of the wall makers. So even a sword that they made is absolutely useless against me.
This super special sword.
Yeah, we just got this really nice inscription about how it's so cool and it does all these things. It doesn't do anything. It's very disappointing. It was a very big letdown, in my opinion, that the sword was not useful, not used. As like, why even give us the interesting details in the previous chapter? Why change the inscription on it? It doesn't
meaningless.
do anything.
Yeah, I agree.
I was very disappointed by the sword, the effect or the lack of effect by the sword. Nevertheless, he just kind of laughs at her, and then he does this super creepy thing where he grabs her arm and he pulls her towards him, causing the sword to go further and further into his body because he wants to get close to her. He wants to deliver a kiss.
Yeah, classic bad guy move.
He's so gross. He's so gross.
The orc and Strider in Fellowship of the Ring.
Mm. So because of their proximity, Sabriel can see that Kerrigor being in his body is so toxic to his own body that it's like his smile is starting to crack and his body is starting to decay because the thing that's inside of it, that's inhabiting it, is so putrescent.
Let's explain this. The body of Rogier was in good shape.
Yeah, looked just like Touchstone.
Yeah, looked like Touchstone, still looking good.
Yep.
So, once that Kerrigor gets in there again, it's rotting.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Absolutely immediately. At this point, for certain, Sabriel becomes aware of the ring on her finger and how it's growing in size, just like it did.
No. She notices first that there's not just black in Kerrigor. There's the white light. Some light white is kind of shining through her. She can see
in his eyes.
Was it in his eyes? Yeah, she could see some white free magic in there, and then kind of realize the ring, and then the ring's getting bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
And this harkens back to, I don't know, the 3rd chapter or something, when she was having that fight with Mogget, and the ring, all of its own accord, started to grow, and it kind of took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the same thing is happening right now with that ring. It's growing, and she knows what to do with it this time. She knows exactly what to do with it. And old Kerrigor, he wants to give her a kiss. He's being all creepy and stuff, and he's letting her know what her fate is, that she's going to be either conscious and awake or in a coma until they get back to Belisare, when he's going to cut her throat and break more Charterstones, her and her boyfriend.
She's not dying yet. He needs
What's
her
his name?
I'm sorry, whose name?
What's her boyfriend's name? Touchstone, yeah.
Boyfriend. They're not boyfriend and girlfriend.
It's not a real name.
Time for that nonsense.
You're right. Nevertheless, Kerrigor slinks in. He's going to give her a kiss, right? She's absolutely helpless. She can't do much of anything. She's basically profoundly held by magic.
She is able to turn her head, though.
But she does turn her head just in time. And he's like, oh, like an uncle's kiss, which is kind of creepy also.
I thought it was creepy. Yeah. I thought it was a creepy.
But then through will and magic, he forces her head back around to face him. And this is when she notices his eyes. This is the first time she's looked at him closely. And she can see these glow of white behind his eyes. Mm-hmm. And she notices the ring is growing.
Yes.
And her mouth is parting of its own way. Like, she has no control over this. This gross creature that is decomposing right in front of her is going to kiss her open-mouthed. Disgusting. Yes. Nevertheless, as it comes in for the kiss, she gets that ring over its head.
Yes.
And, I mean, from there, it's just it's a nonstop downhill ride for that poor guy.
Yeah, the skin is being ripped off as the ring is traveling down.
Yes.
He's becoming I visualize it as, Hellraiser.
Yes.
Yes.
Garth Nix describes it as an apple coring effect. The ring is big, but it is only big enough to accommodate so much. And as it travels down his body and is binding his arms, it's just taking all of the flesh and discarding it as it goes until his arms are bound around his waist. And then I'm not real sure about the order of operations, but essentially we end up with a ring in the middle, silver band in the middle with a red ruby glowing.
Yeah.
And then you've got a ball of blackness on one side of the ring and a ball of whiteness on the other side of the ring. And as the ring shrinks, the balls of light become a black cat and a white cat on the ground, which then proceed both of them to vomit up a new ring.
Yeah, they each have their own collar.
Oh, you know what I forgot to mention, though? When does it happen? Kerrigor takes the sword out. I think it's as soon as she gets that thing over his head.
Yeah. So
he pulls the sword out.
It's all kind of happening at the same time. So the ring is getting bigger on her hand. He's getting closer, wanting to kiss her. The ring gets out, up and over his head. As that's happening, he takes the sword out and stabs Sabriel.
Which is disgusting.
Yeah. And then after that happens, the ring is getting further and further down past his shoulders, so he can't use his hands anymore.
Right.
So, she gets impaled before.
Yes. Well, he threw her to the ground and impaled her. So she's on the ground, bleeding out of her stomach.
Yeah.
These cats form and vomit up these rings that tinkle and roll over to her.
Yeah. They fall asleep.
She just essentially passes out at this point.
Yeah. She doesn't pick up the ring. She passes out.
Yeah, it's just insane, right? But now there's two cats.
Yeah, and that's how that chapter ends. The last chapter. That is how the last chapter ends.
This is the end of the book, essentially.
This is how, well, essentially. But we have one epilogue to go.
All right, so...
This is the last chapter of the book proper.
Let me just look at my notes real quick to make sure that we're not skipping over anything super importante.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, there is an important detail. Sabriel did get impaled. She is lying on the ground, bleeding. Mm-hmm. Kerrigor has this thing around his arms at this point. His body is decaying. He's just becoming this like vertical, smoky creature. And then she pulls out one of the bells. She pulls out Rana.
Ah, that's right. Because, yeah.
She rings Rana, and it causes everybody who was wounded gravely to die. And, probably within a very wide radius.
Yes.
And people who were less wounded, they go into a healing slumber. And that I assume includes her because she passes out at this point.
Yes. And that all makes sense also because that happened before. I mean, that's the bell on Mogget's collar is Rana, the Rana bell. Okay. So it all makes sense to be the final binding for Kerrigor and these cats
and yet she didn't have to do it for Mogget.
Huh?
She did not have to do it for Mogget when they first had their little tussle. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't remember. But that bell was there, so it had to be
There's two cats.
Something.
A black cat and a white cat. And now you can have your black cat. Mogget's the white one, though. I just want you to know.
Maybe that was what was stuck in my mind.
No, I don't know.
I don't think so.
All right, well, that ends that chapter. It basically ends the book. All we have left now is a prologue. What's a prologue?
I want to see what that last line of that chapter is before I jump into the prologue. I just want to see exactly how that chapter ended. The last line. So, it ends with Touchstone thinking about things. He remembers a childhood memory of, Highness, we bring sorrowful tidings. The Abhorsen is dead. That's how that chapter ends, with Touchstone being like, oh, Sabriel's dead.
Well, she is in a pool of her own blood with a sword sticking out of her.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just explaining that is how that chapter, the last chapter of the book Sabriel, ends.
Okay, Jill. Well, why don't you tell me what you think a prologue is?
You mean epilogue?
No. An epilogue. An epilogue.
I believe an epilogue should tie up loose ends. Usually, I mean, maybe it's not the solid definition of epilogue, but in my mind, usually there's a little jump forward in time, maybe, or we're in a different place so that we explain something that we didn't get an explanation for before.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
So would you be satisfied if the epilogue jumped forward about 5 minutes in time?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to ask.
Right.
So, Jill, tell me about the epilogue. Tell me everything.
Chapter epilogue. It begins with Sabriel in death. She is in the current of death, the water. She feels the water. She's in the current. And all of a sudden, she starts seeing these figures around her that remind her of the mother sending. If you can remember way back when the mother sending thing was a thing.
Right.
She got advice from it. I'm trying to remember now. I'm pausing on the epilogue for a second to go back and ask you. She only had a certain amount of times that she could talk to her mother sending. It
was like 3 times in 7 years.
Did we get that third time, or was there one time left on that?
There was a time left.
And we never got that, but we're getting this. I just find that...
I feel this is different.
Oh, no. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I'm like I said, I'm pausing on the epilogue for a second. We get that info that she has one more time to talk to the mother sending, but we never talk to the mother sending again.
Oh,
I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah, that was thrown out there to not go back to. Anyway, back to the epilogue.
Rewind.
She's floating down death in the current. She sees these shapes and forms, and she realizes it's the other Abhorsens, and they're all telling her, live, you must go back. You cannot die. And she's like, I'm dead. I can't go back. And they're like, no. You have not made another Abhorsen yet. You need to go back, procreate. You need to continue this line, and then you can die.
Well, hang on. That's not. I don't know that she has to procreate to create another Abhorsen.
Really? How is it done then?
Well, it doesn't have to be a direct descendant of her. Her father.
It has to be a family member, but there are none left.
Are there not?
No, that's what they basically said. Like, there are none left. She's the last one of her line.
Well, it's not a very. It's not going to last very long then, because, I mean, accidents happen. Like, her father was the nephew of the previous Abhorsen or something like that.
Right.
It wasn't a direct parentage kind of thing.
Right. But he obviously probably didn't have any brothers and sisters. His mother and father are dead. All the aunts and uncles are dead. Obviously, like everyone's dead. They're gone.
She needs to look for a cousin.
I
Obviously,
think she's already found one.
If she goes back far, Touchstone's not her cousin.
You don't think so? You don't think they're all kind of all those magic, the Abhorsen and the Royals, like they're not all like connected?
If they are, it's so far back in the past that it doesn't matter. And I mean, in some places in our country, first cousins can marry. So
yeah,
we only say ugh because it's a social moray. That's it.
I know, but I wouldn't want to marry any of my cousins.
Yeah, all my cousins are dudes. So not marrying them. Anyway. So she recognized all of these they're previous Abhorsens, and they're not sending.
They did say, like, she's the last of her line. She cannot die until there's another Abhorsen. So they do say that. Like, there isn't another Abhorsen.
Go back.
No more Abhorsen blood out there. She's the last one that has Abhorsen blood.
Your job is not done.
And so she does go back. So she comes back out of death and opens her eyes, kind of, but they're all crusted. And she looks around, and Colonel Horace is dead. District Greenwood is dead. Her friend Elamir, that was the bunny girl, right? From the very beginning?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Oh, okay. But a good friend of hers apparently is dead.
Yeah.
Many other people dead.
Half the soldiers.
Yeah. She looks over at the cats. Touchstone sees that she's awake, runs over and yells, "You're alive! She's alive!" And that's it.
Okay, it's sort of it. He did first aid 101 big error in that he pulled the sword out of her.
Okay, but you're right. Yes, he pulled the sword out, but you're the one that is kind of against insignificant details. And
I don't consider that inconsiderate. He could have killed her.
Why would Touchstone kill her? He loves her.
He pulled the sword out.
Oh, well, as he pulled the sword out, they were also doing healing magic and all that. I feel like they knew what they were doing.
I feel like they're just students and they don't.
Well, from all intents and it sounded like she was going to be fine.
Yeah, it does. It does sound that way.
So yeah, okay, yes.
Nevertheless,
rewind, he pulls the sword out, they do healing magic, and the chapter ends. I'm sorry, the epilogue ends.
Epilogue. So is that really it? Is that really the end of the book?
Yep, that's it. That is the end.
So she wakes back up, an ambulance is on the way, and
that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Wait a minute. This is an epilogue. We're supposed to have the strings tied up, all the knots and stuff.
Right. Like, does she live with both of the cats? What's up with both two cats? What's the black cat's personality? What's happening? What is happening?
Okay. Well, I guess there's a second book and a third book in the series, but back in 1995 there wasn't. So no. What does it lead you to think?
That's a good question, because I don't know what it leads me to think. It leads me to think that, well, my first question would be, did he think that there was going to be another book? If the answer is yes, then it was a terrible hook for another book, really. I mean, yes, you want to know what happens to them, but it was a pretty crappy ending, in my opinion.
I was a bit disappointed with the ending, yeah. Yeah, but mostly, well, no, mostly. It began with the sword.
Yeah.
And how, like, it was finally described and then for nothing. And then we've already seen the ring and how it binds Mogget.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the same exact.
But we didn't get really any lore on that ring. So my question then is, like, so can it bind any sort of weird free magic creature? Like, is it just a binding ring? Like, I thought it was specifically for Mogget.
I did too.
It just makes sense to me. But it's why don't we both of them, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, let's talk about that, because maybe
we did talk. Yes, because I had mentioned to you before off air that I believe Mogget was just the original Kerrigor. Let's say he was a free magic.
He was a super powerful free magic creature that was an adversary To Abhorsen.
Whoever, yeah, Abhorsen, the land, whatever was going on at that time.
Too powerful to be killed.
Long, long, long ago.
At least 3,600 years. We've done the math.
Pre-Kerrigor, yeah, long, long ago.
Yeah.
So I guess they're kind of the same thing to me. We don't.
I think that's fair.
Anything on that.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I guess the binding works. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but that's just what I think.
What if the binding only worked because
Mogget was inside?
Subsumed Mogget.
I thought that as well. I think that's also a reasonable explanation.
You remember how it said, the sword said, the Claire saw me, the blah, all that nonsense. So the Claire obviously can see. The Wallmaker forged the sword. Wallmaker also made those rings. And Mogget. So I'm super.
I feel like when Kerrigor breaks through and they're talking, I can't remember the line, but it feels like there's a reference made to him being the Wallmaker. Like there's a light to Mogget. There's a light reference made, like that he might actually be the Wallmaker.
Well, let's talk about. Can you find it?
I will try to find it. What?
All right, so we're gonna talk about Mogget and the Wallmaker and all that nonsense now. That's basically what we're working on. On page 481 of the, what is it, EOS? Yeah, the EOS paperback edition, Kerrigor delivers a bunch of information. And he says, no sword can harm me, blah, blah, blah. Not even one made by the Wallmakers, plural, I'll mention. Especially now, when I have finally assumed the last of their powers. Power that ruled before the Charter, power that made the wall. I have it now. I have that broken puppet, my half-brother, blah, 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 blah.
This is Kerrigor saying this?
Yeah, Kerrigor says all that. He's basically gloating that he has taken on the power of the Wallmaker. But I was always under the impression that the Wallmaker was a singular entity because the Wallmaker is always referred to as the Wallmaker, not the Wallmakers. And now at the end, we're finding out that there are many Wallmakers and that there was a time before the Charter Stones when the world was free magic. And then the Wallmaker or Wallmakers built the Charter Stones.
I think it's because of this line here. I think it just made me think of it. It says she's thinking about like the bells and how she only has 6 bells. It's in chapter 27. She's got her unfamiliar sword, strange to the touch, and it says even if it was forged by the Wallmaker, then it goes the Wallmaker. That reminded her of Mogget, who knew what he had been. That's true. So I think it just in my mind I like put them together. Anyway,
Mogget was referred to at one point as a relic of the Wallmaker.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I think we both feel like the Wallmakers harnessed. So free magic existed before charter magic, and whoever the Wallmakers probably harnessed that magic with the Charter Stones or within the Charter Stones and within the wall and other things, and kind of tamed it a little bit, harnessed it for their own purposes.
Well, I was wondering
if this together ourselves. So
no, you're correct. You're absolutely. It's a lot of speculation, but we have some information.
Yeah.
There was obviously a time in the past when before the Charter that's directly mentioned in one of the last chapters. The free magic is nauseating to the humans, but the Charter magic isn't. And the Wallmaker built the wall, built the rings, forged the swords, did all of these things that are used by humans to keep the dead down. I wonder, you got this time, a long time ago, the past, where magic is free and there are free magic creatures, and maybe Mogget was one of them and the Wallmaker was one of them. And
probably very wild and,
potent
yes.
time. And I think you're right. I think Mogget probably was a serious adversary that was too powerful to be killed, so they trapped it. And then the long period of history goes on. But if you think about the image that is the very end, when you've got Kerrigor, the ring, and Mogget, you've got Kerrigor on one side, black, Mogget on the other, white, the ring in the middle, unimportant really, but something dividing them, right?
Yes.
Well, you got
why?
So also
why?
in this book, you've also got the North, you've got the South, and you've got a wall that divides them.
Okay, but what is the
You've got magic in the North, you've got technology in the South, and then a wall that prevents the two from traveling between each other.
Are you saying it's just a simple like metaphor for that?
I don't think it's a metaphor.
Because like I said before, I think Kerrigor and Mogget are like almost the same, except maybe Mogget was never a human. Like Mogget may have always just been magic.
Okay, but we've got other places where we can divide the world. Okay, you've got life and you've got death. Right? Kerrigor is obviously part of death.
Right.
Mogget, he's black. He's the black form, the black cat. Mogget on the other end, I mean, I wouldn't call him life, but at the same time,
that's where it kind of gets confusing for me a little bit.
Well, maybe they're opposed forces, though. Maybe free magic is just this potent, life-giving, positive energy, and then over on the other side you have death, which
free
obviously
magic is wild. It can do good and bad things, I think. But maybe that death magic, the Abhorsen's magic, is a completely different beast, a completely different animal from free magic. Because the necromancers, the Abhorsens, use that Book of the Dead and use their bells and use their own kind of magic along with the charter magic.
Yeah.
So I would think that whatever Kerrigor is basically represents the Abhorsens. Like it's the death magic. It's just they're using it in different ways. And the Abhorsen is using their death magic along with the quote unquote good charter magic that has been used and harnessed from free magic, which I'm going to guess right now and say is inherently good. If we're going to the free magic is inherently good as opposed to the death magic, which is inherently bad. I'm just trying to, in my own mind, separate what the two sides are, what Mogget versus Kerrigor is.
We have seen in previous sections, we have seen that without the charter stones, the dead can rise really easily. And before the wall existed in the past, so when the world was ruled by the wall makers and free magic creatures, assuming, then maybe like the boundary between life and death was really non-existent.
Yes,
so you do have life, you do have death, you have creatures that are kind of going in between, and then the charter stones were kind of what keep the dead dead,
and also Abhorsen.
The Abhorsen's kind of like the police force for the charter,
but also harnessing that death magic. I'm just calling it that.
No, you're right. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
necromancy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Not a lot of answers.
Not really.
It's fun to speculate, though. I do enjoy the process of like trying to figure out what the author is doing and like what the rules are that we're not informed of.
It's worth talking about just because of the way it ends, with both of them being cats. They're both still there, like they're the same but different, and it's worth talking about, fleshing that out.
So I don't know if we're going to get any further than that, though. I don't feel I have any more input on that matter. So if you're all right with it, I'd like to move on just a little bit. Is that good?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the wall.
Okay.
The wall is this dividing line between the North and the South. And we learned in one of the last chapters that if it wasn't for the wall, Ancelstier would be just like the Old Kingdom, like overrun with magic and dead things and all of that. So the wallmaker put up that wall, and whatever the purpose was behind that, it separates two distinctly different worlds. The North, the Old Kingdom, which is full of magic, and the South, the Ancelstier, which is technology. So I think that is a metaphor. I think you've got essentially when two worlds collide. You've got a fantasy world and you've got a technology world. And up until pretty recently, because we're dealing with a time period around World War I from our perspective, so early 20th century, and a fantasy world that's still kind of, I don't know, Renaissance-y, Middle Ages, right?
Yeah.
They're not that far separated in time.
No.
not a lot of technology exists, right? But nevertheless, there's a widening gap because technology is ever going to go forward, whereas magic is not. It's always going to be locked in the past. So I think that's a metaphor where we've got, what happens. I suspect Garth Nix thought about that as in those terms. What happens when you have a magical world and a technology world and you smash them together, like at that intersection where they meet, what's that like? And
I think that's all, though, that was thought about. I don't think it was thought about too much past that, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree completely.
Like, what I mean is, like, why separate the two sides? Unless there was, like, people at the time that were like, we don't like the magic. And the other people were like, we do like the magic. And then, like, why would you separate two sides of the same kingdom?
We'll never know. We'll never know.
I know, it's not explained. Like, we're speculating and we're trying to figure out some of these things.
Yeah.
But even with that thought of the two worlds coming together, we don't get a lot of what happens when those two worlds come together so much. Like, when we go to the other side of the wall, at least after it's all said and done in this last section, we're dealing with magic. We're dealing with, magic. We're not really using any of the non-magic stuff, any of the new kingdom stuff to defeat. I mean, yeah, sure, they use the bullets. They use the guns to take down they use the guns to take down the hands and stuff, but that was never going to be enough. Like, they were never going to win with that. I mean, Sabriel even said that.
Yeah.
They were never going to win with that stuff. So no matter what, they were weaker than Kerrigor and that magic and the death magic.
I would like to know, like, if I could ask Garth Nix a couple questions, that would be one of them. Like, why did the wall maker build the wall?
Yeah, I feel like the idea is there. It just the seed didn't grow enough, maybe.
Maybe not, but it's also not required of an author, in my opinion, to explain everything. Like, this is a process that I enjoy. I enjoy speculating and thinking on the topic.
Yeah, and I also like mystery and lore. So
yes.
if I get dribs and drabs of that, I tend to be disappointed when I don't get more.
No, I'm with you. I mean, it's enough for me that I read the second and third book. I also don't remember them at all. I have almost no memory of those books. I
can tell you a little bit, but that's about it.
Yeah, please don't.
Plot, I don't know. Some characters, I do know.
Yes.
And, like, do Touchstone and Sabriel get together? You'll have to read the second book to find out, because the epilogue does not tell you.
Oh, man. I think the epilogue should have been in the future farther, like you said, maybe even after the hospital, Yeah,
recovery time, even if it was just that little jump.
Yes. And then I think at that point in the epilogue, that is when Touchstone, he's been gone dealing with the repercussions. She's alone in the hospital in Ancelstier, and then Touchstone shows up, and then then he says, I might love you. And then she can say, I might love you too.
Right. And after her Horson family telling her, like, you need to get it on, lady. You need to get going here.
What are you, 21? Time for a baby.
You need to procreate. You're right. That should have been in the prologue. It seems so out of place to me before that. Anyway, we talked about that already. He's quite young. I think he's 13 years older than I am. And this book came out in 1995. Are you talking about Garth Nix?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And it was early. It was like his second novel, maybe third novel. I don't know. It was not long in his career. So I imagine he was getting, he was working it out. He's figuring it out. I still like the book immensely, but it definitely read better the first time than the second time.
I have to 100% agree.
And the problems that I have with it now, I didn't have at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I still like the book very much, but I have a lot more problems with it now. That's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
But also the novelty's worn off. The first time you read a book, you get all the lore is brand new.
Yes.
Like
the stuff you don't get kind of doesn't shine through as much.
Right. But like, I had never encountered a magical system utilizing sound like this.
Yeah.
And it was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
On a subsequent reading, it's not really used all that much.
No, I was just about to say they could have done a lot more with that, or he could have done a lot more with that.
It was...
And with, like, because we got the wind chimes mentioned at the beginning of the book, and then here at the end but that was more to signify the death of a person than highlight the magic and stuff. And for a book for young readers, I think that makes a lot of sense. That doesn't go into a lot of detail. It tries to be more emotional. I just don't think it hit the emotional beats as well as I would have liked.
I wonder if it would have hit the emotional beats when I was significantly younger.
I was just about to say that exact same thing. Maybe it would if I was 14.
Yeah, I was not a reader as a younger person. I didn't like to read until I was out of high school.
I actually read a lot more when I was younger.
Yeah, I have a feeling because I think I read this book originally about 10 or 12 years ago, and like I said, I liked it immensely then. I suspect if I had read it as a late teen, appropriately aged along as a peer with Sabriel and Touchstone, probably would not have a problem at all.
I don't think so either. I think I would have liked it. I did though, like at that age, I did like it on my first read. But at that age, I didn't really read young adult, but there were some. There are obviously some, but I wanted to read some of the books like my dad had read, or like I really got into Edgar Allan Poe. So I read lots of different things. I'm trying to think of young adult things that I may have read. Maybe just stuff in school.
I don't know. I really don't know.
I wasn't really into the Babysitter Club books. Not that they're on any sort of level as this book. I would never compare that. Those
are like chapter books, right?
It's almost like little TV episodes or whatever.
Yeah, that's significantly younger even than this book.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit torn about where this book belongs in the pantheon of age appropriateness, but definitely I feel that it is appropriate to say that it belongs to a younger reader than I originally thought.
Yeah, when we started this off, I said young adult, and you're like, what?
Yeah. Jeremiah, the person that turned me on to this book, he agrees with my original assessment, which is this is not a young adult book. But now, after a second and subsequently third reading of this book, I think it is. I think it belongs firmly in the young adult category.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what I said at the beginning of this podcast. It is a young adult book. And going back and reading it again, it solidifies my opinion even more. That is not a negative comment. That's just where I'm categorizing it.
Yeah.
I would say teenage, 14 or younger even.
Younger. Wow.
Deals with death, yes. But if you're in a certain type of family, that's fine. Whatever. Death is a natural, normal thing. I don't think there's that one sexual moment where she thinks he's getting it on with the waitress. So I say it's more of a teenager book.
Yeah. But
college level, no.
I mean, you never get too old to read stuff, do you?
No way. Like as we've said many times, the first time we read this book, we both really liked it.
Yeah.
I consumed it and I ate it up. I read it fast. It was like watching a movie for me.
Yes.
But that's also how I read.
Right.
Sometimes if I'm reading a certain type of book like that, I've read probably every single Agatha Christie book. Those are just, but they're so easy to read, and a lot of them are the same. They're Midsummer Murders in book form.
Oh, this is so good.
A reference that you will understand.
Oh,
That's exactly what Agatha Christie books are.
Yeah.
So they're just it's like when my grandma would read romance novels.
Sure.
You could read one of those in a night. She just tears through it. It's super easy and simple. It's not super small writing. There's not much stuff you have to remember or go back to, or lots of different characters. We're just dealing with a handful of characters here.
Yeah.
It's an easy read. I would still recommend it.
Oh, no, I recommend it very highly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend it to my niece in a few years.
That's a good idea.
She's not ready. She's a little too young still.
Mm.
But if you just look at the spacing, the line spacing in the book, and compare it to something that's obviously intended for adults,
Yes.
The
Oh, yes.
text size,
Yes.
the font size is larger. The space
Mhm.
between the lines is larger.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a
It makes it
400.
less daunting when you, because
Well,
like
it's a
you go
500 page book, and like kids look
right.
at page count if they don't
Exactly.
want to read,
Exactly.
right? But when, I
Yeah,
mean,
I showed Yule the book, and he's like, "How many pages is it?" And I'm like, for 500 pages." Like, oh, and then I open it up to him. I'm like, "Yeah, but look at the font. Like,
yeah, the
it's an
spacing
easy
between the
read."
words, the spacing between the lines is as much as the lines themselves.
Yeah, it's not senior citizen sized font, but I think
Yes.
people that read know what we're talking about.
Yes.
If you don't read and are only listening to the books, well, you might not know what we're talking about.
It's not Dostoevsky.
Exactly.
Jesus. So were there any characters you were disappointed that passed on in this? I really liked
Not really.
I liked Horace.
Horace. See, I pronounced it when I was reading Horace, but I had a feeling you were going to say it's Horace.
I don't know.
Horace.
I pronounce it Horace. Don't.
Dang it, I should have said Horace.
It's not a name that I'm familiar with, and I don't know that it's a real name, so I don't know that we'll ever find somebody that could correct us.
Well, no, but because of the whole Roger Rogier thing.
That is a correctable offense. I mean, that is obviously a ding-dong at work mispronouncing names.
I think YSE could be ice or Horace, whatever.
Yeah, I agree. It could definitely be. It could definitely be.
Yeah, I liked him, but I didn't have any feeling when anybody died in this book.
I do have this feeling, and it's because we talked about it in the beginning, where he has the sight. He's seen this before. And then he had the sight, and he realized this is the moment. He didn't have a choice in the matter, and I really resent that. He saw it, so therefore it has to happen.
Yeah.
And like when you've got a character whose sole purpose is to kind of like, I guess, he's an authority figure, but he's there to support her,
Well, he was a fatherly figure, and exactly.
Yeah. When, she's going looking for her father, he's got a daughter back in the South that's her age.
Well, and that's when she also felt bad when she figured out
that he's going to die. Yeah.
She's like, oh, he has a daughter and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Not enough character development for me to have a strong feeling of emotion when any of them died.
But developed characters.
But he is. But I don't disagree with you. And maybe it's my cold, dead heart. but I could tell you instances of when I'm reading certain books of me being emotional and upset.
Sure.
A few moments in Harry Potter, particularly.
Oh, geez, yeah.
I was reading those, like, goodness gracious.
I don't care what anybody says. That
I actually cried when I was reading.
She's pretty masterful.
But the characters are set up so wonderfully, and you get a lot of time with them. Those books are long. And anyway, was not a Harry Potter podcast, but I have felt emotion reading. Yes. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it here, but that's just me. I don't know.
How would you have felt if Touchstone had died?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I wouldn't have cared so much.
I don't give any ass for Touchstone. I don't care at all.
I didn't care for their relationship. I felt it was forced. It didn't feel natural to me. There was no like friendship, and then they've connected on a level, and then they're getting along, and then it gets growing. Like there's none of that. It's just they're infatuated with each other basically, and I don't even know why they're that infatuated with each other.
Well, I assume
the first shot of his penis when she sees him naked as a wooden man.
Yes.
And now he's talking, and it's like, ugh.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Oh my God, he won't stop being stupid.
Yeah, and now he likes her because it's the first woman he's seen, well, in days. I was going to say hundreds of years, but really, from his perspective, days. Why is he so in love? Why isn't he more concerned about everything that happened before he was frozen? He seems so nonchalant. We had an argument before about how you thought he was a ding-dong, and I was like, yeah, but, knowing what he's coming from and all that, like, give him a break. But now I'm like, he is a ding-dong. Like, he doesn't even care about anything that happened.
Yeah.
I don't get the feeling that he gave two whatevers.
I think that the book would have benefited from their relationship having just gone along naturally with no romance until the prologue. I think that would have been
Epilogue.
I'm sorry, epilogue.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a very strengthening position to go and end on. I think that would have been a little bit more interesting.
Definitely. A more interesting journey. Plus, getting to know people as friends and that relationship is just far more interesting to me, and that growth than just, oh, we like each other for no real reason, except I guess they think they're cute. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that is a significant enough reason when you're young. I mean, you're
not wrong, but that's not what this book is about.
No, that's very true.
This isn't about her coming of age in that way. It's about her coming of age in a different way. And I think that Touchstone stuff was just superfluous stuff that could have been used to give us some more lore, maybe give us some more scenery, maybe give us a little bit more with characters, maybe even in the beginning, give us some more with Magistrix Greenwood, so we care when we come back to her.
Yeah, when she dies. Like, what a shame.
Yeah.
That could have definitely have been more emotionally impactful.
Yeah.
Handled differently. You're right.
But we didn't get a lot of her in Excelsior. It was kind of...
I mean, I think she was just referred to. I don't even know that she spoke in the beginning.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. I don't.
Or Umbraid, or any of them. No. Hold on.
Somebody did.
Who was she? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because it wasn't enough for me to remember or care that she died.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't really care about anyone dying. I'm sorry if that makes me sound cruel and cold, but I just
No. It's no.
I'm saying that. I know you don't care. I'm saying that to anybody who may be listening to this right now.
Well, to anybody listening that has read this book, I mean, if they disagree, great. You know, that's power to them. We're not here to have an argument. We're just here to have.
No, not at all. These are just our opinions and our own feelings when we are reading it.
Yes,
and that's the whole point.
We have to be honest. Like, feeling it's a big part of reading. You know, it's an emotional journey. It's not just a knowledge journey. We're not reading nonfiction here. You know, we're reading fiction, and fiction is a story, and stories need to pull on heartstrings in appropriate places at appropriate times in an appropriate way. Well, this is a good time. This is a good point to mention where we're going from here, because this book is done.
Yes.
We finished
Sabriel. That is the end for us of Sabriel. No more Sabriel discussion.
Right.
People.
But that means that we're moving on to another book.
Yay, and I'm excited.
Oh, are you?
I am excited.
What's the next book, Jill?
Leviathan Wakes. The first book in the Expanse series.
That's right. And it's not really one author. It's two authors. I don't know their names. James S.A. Corey, I think, is the name on the book, but it's actually two different people.
Right. Yeah, Leviathan Wakes. And I have not read this book. So it will be a first read for me.
I have read the book.
Yes. Lul has read it, but Lul has a terrible memory, so that doesn't matter.
My mind is good, but my memory for stories is very bad. And I think it's just because it's not impactful. Like, I can reread Harry Potter probably this year or next year, and I won't. There's stuff you obviously can never forget.
Of course, I would hope so.
The Expanse, I don't remember how it ends. I remember some details, but I don't remember how it ends. And obviously, it's at least 8 books long. And
I don't know if I should tell our listeners who may be listening, but I have seen the show.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. We'll go over that again when we start the next book.
Oh, yeah, of course. We're just bantering at this point.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm excited to get to The Expanse.
Me too.
To be honest. However, I'm also excited to take a little bit of a breather. And I know it's a little premature, but the next book after The Expanse, whatever it is, I want it to be a book I have not already read.
Yeah, I was going to say, yes.
There's a reason that I'm choosing the books that I've chosen or that we've chosen. And part of that is because I know what I'm getting into. Right.
Yeah, our second book here was partial pressure for me a little bit. I've been excited to want to read it, and
well, it's great. I'm glad that you suggested it. It's a perfect book. It's appropriate because
and also it's a genre shift. It's a genre shift for us.
It is. But actually, I prefer science fiction over fantasy.
Yeah, I just mean like you and your other podcasts have done a fantasy. We just did a fantasy.
Yep.
And our podcast is sci-fi and fantasy, so let's get a sci-fi in there.
That's right. Let's get a sci-fi book, and we will. And it just happens to be more than it is a genre-defying novel, The Expanse. It's got elements of sci-fi. It's got elements of horror. It's got elements of noir.
Yes.
It's got it all as far as I'm concerned. I think the only thing it doesn't have is fantasy, and that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantasy to fantasy.
Exactly. I don't know. I think one of these days I need to come up with a more significant list of books that I want to do for the podcast. But also that means, getting onto some more modern stuff, books that, like The Martian, came out when I wasn't paying attention. The Arrival, Ted Chiang, I think his name is, came out when I wasn't paying attention. There's lots of stuff that's out now that I'm probably a decade behind.
Yeah,
because I was not paying attention to books for a while. We've discussed what we're gonna do next.
Yeah,
and we'll probably start. When do you want to start that?
That's a good question.
So I think that we should probably aim for doing our first episode at the very end of August.
Okay.
We can record it and get it up before the month ends. That way we're not missing any of our upload bandwidth, as it were.
Yeah.
And start at the very end, like last day of August or something like that. Seem reasonable?
Yeah, very reasonable.
Okay, so we'll aim for August, and if worse comes to worse, we'll put it out in September.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our read-along of Sabriel. I really enjoyed breaking it down with my friend Lowell.
Agreed.
We will see you next time when we